Roll call.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Barton?
Present.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes, I'm here.
Mr. Moore? Mr. Sunbury?
Here.
Mayor Brown?
Here. At this time, I'm going to take public comment. If there's anyone that has public comment, please let me know. And I'll ask the clerk to see if there's any public comment that is in the presence of the township upstairs.
Mayor Brown, this is Stuart
Is there any
Brooks.
public comment that anyone can
Yes,
say? I don't see any indicated.
You see,
I will
this is the
unmute
problem.
everybody on.
This is the problem. By now, you guys should have this under control.
I don't.
Please
Okay.
go down and
How do
tell
I,
them.
how do I,
Don't, let's not talk to me
how,
like that.
how do I,
Come in, would
Now
like
they're
public
gonna
How do I
close the
give
public hearing
notice?
Because you didn't take
Just
care of
how do
this.
I,
Just a minute, you're not gonna
Is
yell.
there any public comment?
I'm not
anywhere?
yelling, I'm just
I'm yelling
asking.
at you. I'm asking you to do your
No,
job
don't
properly.
talk to me
Someone at
like
the
that.
podium?
Okay.
Sean,
All right, give me
Good
one
Sean.
second. I'm just gonna get this
Sean.
done.
Wait 1 second, honey.
No connection.
Yeah, give me one second.
Okay. You open the public hearing.
For some reason, I'm having technical difficulties with my screen.
Hold on for a minute, upstairs.
Just give me 1 second, please.
It's so
I'm gonna need a second as well.
Constantly do
Okay.
this. So tiresome. It's so tiresome, and I don't understand why Doug Kramer isn't up here. He's the administrator. This way he could tell them. I'm not gonna put up with this bullshit. I'm sorry. It's outrageous. It's outrageous.
Ms. Corber, let me know when you're ready. And I'll just ask the committee to please,
So much easier ways of doing this.
please mute your mics.
Are you having issues?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to communicate with the.
Yeah, because it's not open. She
Oh.
doesn't know that, because she hasn't gotten your signal, LaShawn, that there's public here to speak.
I did advise her. I did
Okay.
advise her.
So how do I,
You can just speak. They can hear you.
I asked and I didn't get any response.
Okay, well, we're gonna see how that goes.
Okay, let me ask
Okay.
again.
I don't know why this is
Mayor
so
Brown, can you
complicated.
hear me?
Seriously, guys.
Right now you're muted, okay?
Okay.
We'll see how it goes. We'll get it working.
Why isn't it possible for you to be up here as you should
We'll get it working.
properly be up here?
We'll get it working for you.
That's not the point. Did you start the... It's just unreal. They've made it so difficult.
You went to see this, did you not? You went to, those things that she said were on file, you asked for them.
Yeah, well, no, we can't. That doesn't exist. It was a quick find the names. Even when I asked for it. It's tiresome. Don't use a simple thing. I think they call it, like anyone's gonna break into their meeting.
Okay, Mayor, can you, unmute the mics for the public,
The,
Tabernacle Media?
that is self-muted. I've unmuted all of the mics for the public, so
No
it's.
problem. I'm gonna go ahead and unself-mute that, okay? So just 1 moment, please.
Okay.
I apologize for the difficulties, but we'll get it together.
That's all right. It's all good.
It was made so much more complicated than it needed to be. And it's just for no purpose. And why are they all downstairs? I don't get it. Good idea. That's a good idea, Steve.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got some extra. Are we good?
We're gonna be good. We're gonna be good.
You go,
Positive
Sean.
thinking.
What?
Positive thinking. Okay, see, there we go. Miss Natalie. Okay,
I really.
there we go.
All right.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, well then, are we, I'm going back to your request for people who wanted to make public comment. I am a person who wants to make public comment, and I'll proceed
Okay.
in your direction.
All right, who else has their mic on? Give me 1 second. I'm getting some feedback. I don't want it to interfere with any comments that we're hearing. Okay, I think we're good now. Okay, go ahead. Please state your name and address for the record.
Okay, Stuart Brooks, Moores Meadow Road, Tabernacle. Are we good?
You're good?
All right. My comment regards item 5, municipal budget on second reading. I want to confirm that notice for tonight's municipal budget on second reading was published, in fact. I'd like to know when it was published, and I'd like to know if the clerk has an affidavit of that publication. It doesn't appear to me as if it has been published, and I know that many of the hearings between today and going backwards to May 26th did not occur, and at none of those meetings that I'm aware of was the public hearing on the budget ever opened. So it seems to me that without a recent publication of notice for this public hearing at second reading, that there's no notice. So again, it would seem we can't move forward with the budget. So before we go any further, I'm looking for that clarification and that demonstration of proof. That's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, is that your only comment?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other public comment?
Yes, yes, Mayor. This is Fran Brooks, Moores Meadow Road.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Okay, great. I'm also going to comment on this budget hearing tonight. Based on a review of all the notices and affidavits, there doesn't seem to be any publication notice and affidavit for this budget hearing. There have been a number of meetings in between that were canceled, that were inoperable, and the fact is that at the last meeting, when the budget summary was raised and the lack of publication, nobody opened the public meeting, technically opened it, which is a necessity under the law, under Title 40A, which would have enabled the township to continue the budget hearing. But that wasn't done by anybody on the committee side. Nobody raised the issue. Mr. Lang didn't raise the issue. And by the way, Mr. Lang is almost inaudible. So if he's online, I hope he speaks up more clearly and we're able to understand him because he is your legal advisor. So we are at a juncture here where I don't think this public hearing can go on because you never opened it and there's no evidence of notice. And you have the budget summary now noticed in the agenda as well as the cap bank ordinance, but there's no notice of the public hearing for the budget tonight. And that is a problem, and this is your the agenda you're passing out in town hall is the official agenda, and there's just no evidence of it. And as Mr. Lang commonly says, in an abundance of caution, we think that you should not entertain the public hearing because you have no evidence that you a proper notice or that you opened it. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lang, would you like to speak on the matter of the publication of the budget language?
Yeah, in the package, first of all, hello everybody, and hope everyone is safe, and thank you for the opportunity to appear at the meeting virtually today and to accommodate the public by not only allowing to appear on your computer, but on your phone, and also to be in person. So I'd like to congratulate and thank LaShawn for the work that she's done to present this tonight and the continuing dedication to providing transparency in the operation of the Tabernacle local government. So in the package that was provided with the agenda, there is a affidavit from the Burlington County Times wherein they certify that the notice and summary were published on July 10th. And the statute requires that notice be published in a publication in the county that circulates in the township on at least 10 days' notice. It would appear that what's certified to have been published on July 10th is the summary and a notice which specifically indicates that a hearing on the budget and tax resolution will be held at Tabernacle Town Hall on July 27th at 7:30 p.m., at which time objections to the budget and tax resolution for the year 2020 may be presented by the taxpayers or other interested parties. So we have sufficient notice of the hearing. The hearing would have to be commenced at least 28 days after introduction by resolution and title, which was done some time ago. So it appears that the clerk has properly noticed with public hearing on the budget tonight.
So we're good to go, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. So this time, I'm going to have the second reading on the ordinance for the budget. The ordinance is to, this is the cap bank. The ordinance is to increase the municipal budgets with limits up to 2.5% unless authorized by ordinance to increase it to 3.5% over the previous year's final appropriation, subject to certain exceptions. So the ordinance is 2001-1, an ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits, establish a cap bank. So at this time, I'm going to open the floor to public comment. Anyone who's interested in public comment, please let me know.
This is Fran Brooks again.
Do I have any public comment
Yes,
from
this is Fran
Tabernacle
Brooks.
Media?
Can you hear? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
First of all, I'm not sure what affidavit Mr. Lang is looking at, because the only one that exists, there are only two that exist in the official agenda, and one has to do with the cat bank, and the other has to do with the budget summary. There's no other document in this official agenda, and I came this afternoon and asked Ms. Barber about it, and she said she didn't know what I was talking about. But there is nothing in this official agenda that actually speaks to the public hearing on the budget. Only the cap bank ordinance.
Mrs. Brooks, this is the comment for the cap bank.
Well, you should take that as some instruction, and that'll be my comment on the cat bank ordinance, that's the only thing that exists in addition to the budget summary, the only thing that exists in the agenda, on the agenda and the official agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment that has to do with ordinance number 2020-1, an ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and establish a cap bank? So I'm looking for comments on that. Is there any comments for that? Are there any from Tabernacle Media? Ms. Barber?
I do not see, no comments from Tabernacle Media.
All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to adopt ordinance number 2020-1, an ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and establish a cap bank? Can I have a motion, please?
Muted.
Is there, committee's got to unmute themselves. Can I have a motion for ordinance 2020-1, please?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee? Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. Thank you. Municipal budget on second reading. I'm going to ask Mr. Haynes to discuss the budget, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so the budget that we're holding for, hopefully for adoption tonight, has total revenues of $5,194,792.91. The composition of that is $190,000 from surplus anticipated. That would be money that we currently have in our surplus funds. Miscellaneous revenues anticipated $1,223,424.51. An amount to be raised by taxation for municipal purposes of $3,081,368.40. The appropriations are the same amount, total appropriations being $5,194,792.91. It is composed of operations, $3,374,987. Deferred charges and statutory expenditures of $186,415.65. Appropriations excluded from caps for operations of $30,000. Capital improvements of $443,000. Debt service $1,010,086. And a reserve for uncollected taxes of $150,304.26. The effect of this budget is a 2-cent tax increase on municipal purposes, which if you take that to a $250,000 assessment, it would be approximately a $50 increase over the year.
Thank you. This time, I'm going to open the floor for public comment and open the hearing for the budget. Is there any comment?
Unmuted.
Yeah, there will be.
But I think we should say no making comments for someone starting a meeting that doesn't properly notice. They did not open this meeting in the public.
Is there any public comment?
Yes.
Okay, can you come state your name and address for the record, please?
Yeah, let me have to do some mask work. Stuart Brooks, Moores Meadow Road. Can you hear me? So
Yes, I can.
You know, as a point of order, well, I'm eating into my time, but I can't hear you when people make motions. You're unidentified, and you should identify yourself. It'd be helpful. Okay, roughly 1/3 of your tax levy goes to debt service, and before your CFO had changed his mind, he cautioned you that debt service is eating up your budget, and this budget increases that debt service still further. I think you should limit that. The budget also proposes, for example, in the cap budget, $320,000 for public works equipment. $185,000 is identified for a front-end loader. $135,000 is not identified. I'd like to know what that is, and I point out that's an increase of roughly $90,000 from the year before. Tabernacle buys a lot of equipment. I think that you should consider deferring your capital expenses to reduce your debt load. Next comment. By allowing TRS to keep all the insurance revenues, you've given away a substantial revenue that could have been used directly in this budget instead of in the TRS's budget. Question. What are the proposed increases in payments to the TRS for, and why are they being increased? Next. This budget, like prior budgets, over-appropriates to produce a surplus to offset the next year's expenses, or even this year's expenses. This year, you're using almost $900,000 from surplus, which is an increase of $106,000, 13% from 2019. rather than over appropriating to build your surplus, I think it would be wiser to appropriate what you need. And you know what you need because you have what was used in the prior year. Instead, you tend to simply transfer things from the prior year, and eventually it ends up in surplus. On sheet 15A, I see the municipal court increases by almost $12,600. Why is that? The shared municipal court was supposed to save us money, and that's a big percentage increase from the year before. It seems like over appropriation. Similarly, the construction office appropriation goes from 153.8 to 165.9. Why? And can that be cut back? Also, regarding Mr. Sunbury's salary, it's not clear to me whether he is getting paid for his position as in the OAM or in Township Committee. Similarly, there are increases in fire safety. What are those for? And lastly, there should be money in the budget to fix these fans, which are now off. I assume they're off because when they were on, it made the recordings inaudible. So that's a repair that should be made. It's a small cost, I'm sure. Thank you. I did.
Unmuted.
Okay, is there any more public comment on the budget?
Yes, this is Fran Brooks. Are we on for this? Or are you open?
You're on.
Okay, thank you.
You're done.
Fran Brooks, Moores Meadow Road. I'd like to say at the outset that, again, this public hearing on the budget was not properly noticed, and that you never opened your public hearing and stated specifically that it was going to continue. So this is an improper public hearing, but it obviously is the only way the public can get anything on the record. I'd like to start with the issue on sheet 13 that has to do with the assessors. Are you going to still hire a third-party assessor, Mr. Sean Gaskell or someone else, to inspect farmland assessment? And are you going to charge everyone under farmland assessment, not woodland owners who already pay in order to have their farmland, their woodland management plan inspected every year? Are you going to charge farmland owners, which you can, up to $25, and make it collect the fees, so if you are going to use a third-party inspector or a second assessor, those fees cover his or her costs. Frankly, there's no reason why Mr. Renwick can't do it himself, but that's to be left. I hope that you're not planning on doing that, and that the township residents shouldn't be paid for these specific inspections. They should be fee-driven. The OEM question was asked regarding Mr. Sunbury's salary. What's also unclear in the budget is the issue of why the public safety fire is increasing. I have no idea. It's not explained what that is. It's going from the $1,000 to $7,000 in 2020, and who knows if that's a packed line item or not. There's no way to know. The other thing that is of interest is it's unclear how much money has been allocated. This would be on sheet 13 for legal services, has been allocated to Mr. Burns for his charges. That can't be determined. It can't be segregated, so we don't know how much is going to Mr. Burns. And I have one other question, but I have to pick up my budget. So, do you have my budget? The budget. I'd also like to know why construction code costs are rising and the salaries are rising. We have people who have cost this township enormously because of poor behavior and engendering lawsuits, and why they should be awarded with a 3% salary increase. So it'd be good to hear from Mr. Haynes what that salary increase is going to be. It should be more specific because it is unearned by a number of people. Thank you.
Muted.
Is there any other public comment on the budget? Anyone? All of my attendees are self-muted, so you can unmute if you would like to speak. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment. And I'm going to ask Mr. Haynes to answer the questions he can, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Kramer to answer the other questions.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. As far as Mr. Brooks's questions regarding capital, the $135,000 that is within the actual operating budget for public works equipment is partially to cover the chipper that we have on for approval tonight. I believe, and Mr. Kramer can correct this, the other money was for a body for the truck that we have, that we can roll things on and off. As far as the municipal court increase, the 2019 budget only had combined courts appropriated for a 6-month period of time. Obviously, 2020 is a 12-month period, so we need to increase the appropriations to cover the costs that go along with it, as well as the cost for state police have increased. Regarding the construction code, every department within this budget, because again it is a budget, is allowing for up to a 3% increase in salaries and wages. At a future date, the township committee will either need to update our salary ordinance or the resolution for salaries to determine what the actual increase is that they're willing to give. And you can't give an increase if you don't have it budgeted. As far as the OEM goes, and Mr. Sudbury, I'm not going to say him individually, but we have to budget for a OEM director. Whether he takes a salary or not, you have to budget for it, because if he is no longer here, we would have to hire one. And that is same with the public safety director. Last year it went down to $1,000 only because we did not have one, but we're not to say that we would not want to hire one before the end of the year. We would have to have a budget appropriation available to cover those costs. The tax assessor, again, it's just a budget. Whether we use a third party or not, we have to have funds available. Legal, we've increased it because of it, having an attorney specializing in Oprah. We will stay within the budgeted amount. There is not a specific amount allocated to either individual, whether it's Mr. Lang or our Oprah attorney. And I think I already answered the one regarding construction code.
I didn't answer.
No answer.
Mr. Kramer, do you have anything to add?
Okay, the other item we were looking at, you were correct, is for the hook lift. It's an aerial lift body that is meant to be used on one of our existing chassis, if funds allow later on in the year. Also, the increase in the fire budget is based on Chief Kennard's request, and also based on what their expenses ended up being at the end of last year. His requests were reasonable within what we had spent this year. So that's why we looked at that. And everything else, I think, Rodney, you've answered.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to ask Mr. Lang one more time to speak on the budget.
Well, to just repeat what I said, we did, and I was supplied with a affidavit, proof of publication from the Tabernacle County Times, indicating that notice, given a date, specific time for tonight's hearing, would be proposed and was noticed for the public hearing on the budget. It was also published along with a summary which is compliant with the rule. And again, I have a proof of publication provided by the Tabernacle County Times indicating that the publication was on July 10th. So I'm at a loss as to understand why there is a belief that it hasn't been properly noticed, but I have been provided with the documentation to the contrary.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve resolution number 2020-66 to authorize the reading of title for the municipal budget. This enables us just to read the title without going through line item by line item to read the budget. So could I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Can I have a motion to adopt resolution number 2020-66A, adoption of the 2020 municipal budget? Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Okay, questions, comments from the committee? Roll call, please.
Okay, so Mayor, we're also going to include the prior comments that was made at the last meeting regarding the municipal budget. So the roll call is Mr. Barton,
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the bills?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee on the bills? Roll call, please.
Thank you. Mr. Barton,
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of June 8th and June 15th?
Somebody makes a motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on anything with the minutes from the committee? Roll call?
Mr. Barton,
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis,
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury,
Yes.
Mayor Brown.
Yes. Thank you. Resolution 2020-72, requesting that the director of the DLGS grant permission to approve the insertion of an item of special revenue into the 2020 budget entitled Emergency Management Performance Grant. So I'm gonna get a motion and then I'm gonna have discussion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Bob, would you like to talk about that?
Sure. That's the amount of money set forth by FEMA to support emergency management services for the township of Tabernacle and its residents. So in a sense, by us participating with the state and the county and other municipal OEMs, we get $10,000 to help provide those critical services to the residents. And that's simply what this is, $10,000 for helping us do what we need to protect the residents and their property.
Thank you. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Abstain?
Mayor Brown?
Yes. And again, resolution 2020-74, I'm going to ask for a motion on this, and then again, ask Mr. Sunbury to talk about this also. So can I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Sunbury?
This is something that comes around every 5 years, and this is actually a requirement within the state that the county distribute a mutual aid and assistance agreement every 5 years, so that Tabernacle signs on, so that in the event of emergency, basically police, fire, and EMS for surrounding townships state their willingness via this agreement to provide mutual aid to each other in the event of emergency. So, this assures that we will help our neighbors, and that when time's required, our neighbors will help us.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee? Roll call?
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Resolution 2020-75, authorizing bond reduction number 2 for Seneca Woods Phase 2, Block 802-.1, lots 25. Can I have a motion, please? And then I'm going to ask Dan to talk about this.
I'll make a motion.
Bob?
I'll second it.
No. Okay, Dan, would you mind?
Certainly. This is a performance bond reduction for Phase 2 of Seneca Woods. They've started Phase 2, and they've done a lot of the work in there, including base paving. And so in accordance with the municipal land use law, township's required to review and reduce the amount of the performance bond. In this case, the performance bond for Phase 2 was $732,000. And it's being reduced, we're recommending it being reduced to $219,600, which is 30% of the original bond. They've actually done more work than that, but the municipal land use law allows the municipality to withhold 30% on the bond reductions. So this will be the final reduction for Phase 2 until they complete the project, or complete Phase 2 of the project in its entirety.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Roll call?
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Same thing with this next resolution, 2020-76, approving a change order number 1 to a contract between the Township of Tabernacle and the Arawak Paving Company Incorporated for the 2019 road program. Could I have a motion, please?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Dan, could you comment on this one also?
Certainly. The project is basically completed, and as we do with the end of all road programs, we make our final adjustments to the quantities that were actually installed, and also the adjustments based on the asphalt cement index, which is required by the state. In this case, when all is said and done, this change order is actually a negative amount, $20,608.51. So the township is basically getting that a little over $20,000 credit on the job now that it's complete.
Great. All right. Any questions from the committee? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Resolution 2020-77, authorizing refund of developers escrow account balance. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Dan, you want to comment on this one?
So this is an applicant of Land Development Board that started the process of obtaining approvals for a home business and then decided to withdraw the application.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee? Roll call?
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Resolution 2020-78, approving plenary retail consumption license for WWJR LLC. Can I have a motion, please?
Make the motion.
Second it.
Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution 2020-79, approving plenary retail distribution license for Murphy's in the Pines LLC. Can I have a motion, please?
Make the motion.
Second it.
Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Resolution 2020-80, authorizing Tabernacle Township to enter into a shared service agreement with Burlington County for the entity's central communication /911 calls. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Bob, would you like to talk about this?
Sure. This is another 5-year engagement where Burlington County will provide us with emergency communications through central communications, as well as providing 911 call services to the residents of Tabernacle Township at no expense to us.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Okay, at this time, we're going to have a public hearing. I'm sorry, Sean. We're going to have a public hearing for the award of contract to purchase a Vermeer 15-inch chipper. Mr. Kramer, would you like to talk about that first?
Certainly, Mayor. This is we are a member of the Sourcewell Cooperative, nationwide cooperative. We have been for a number of years. Vermeer has won the contract bid for a series of different chippers, this being one of the models of which they bid. It serves us both to use the national cooperative. It saves us additional money over going out to bid, mainly in the bonding money costs that a bidder would have to absorb. Usually gets passed on to us. So the savings is in the $1,000 or a little higher range over going out to bid, if not a little higher, depending on what your local vendors have in stock. So this has been a proven method in which we have purchased before, and our 18-year-old chipper pretty much demolished the motor when the oil pump gear broke and passed all those metal particles up through the motor. And this was the most cost-effective way to replace that machine as opposed to repairing it, as I spoke last week.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna open the floor for public comment on the public hearing for the purchase of a wood chipper. So is there anyone
Unmuted.
has any public comment that'd like to speak about the wood chipper?
Yes, Mayor.
Purchase of a wood chipper.
Yeah. Yes, Mayor Brown, Stuart Brooks, Moores Meadow Road. Could you or Mr. Kramer comment on whether purchase is a cheaper option than, say, rental or through a shared services agreement with an adjacent township? Or are there any other options short of purchase that would serve Tabernacle well? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment for the wood chipper?
No.
Ms. Barber, is there? No. Thank you. All right, Mr. Kramer,
Muted.
would you mind one more time explaining what you looked at?
Okay. We first looked at the replacement of the motor. The original machine cost us $29,000. The replacement motor or the repair of our existing motor, either one, was in the neighborhood of $25,000. If the block is damaged from what came through, that's another $5,000. So we're looking at putting $30,000 in an 18-year-old machine, that the rest of the machine is still 18 years old. So that was not an alternative for us to look at. As far as the shared services, unfortunately, we all need this piece of equipment roughly at the same time. So it's not really an item that we could share with another community on a regular basis. Southampton uses theirs every week. Medford Lakes uses theirs on a schedule. Chemung's not interested in purchasing a new one at this time. So we've looked at those items. We've looked at whether it was cheaper to go out to bid. And we've looked at a more realistic, a smaller machine that does probably 90% of what we need to get done. So we've had some savings there. So that's why we chose this machine and why we went this route.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to approve Resolution 2020-81, authorize the award of contract to Vermeer North Atlantic through the use of Sourcewell, formerly National Joint Powers Alliance procurement process pursuant to NJSA 52:34-6.2B3. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. Bob made the motion.
Bob made it, Joe second.
Yes.
Any questions from the committee?
I just want to comment that I thank Doug for his research and looking into this. I can tell you from the past disasters and storms that we've had, it's not just localized. So Doug's comment, I am all for shared services when it makes sense, but when the trees hit the pavement, every resident of every municipality simultaneously wants their brush picked up. So, it's not something that, as much as you'd love to share it, it's like you all need it at the same time, and then generally you all don't need them at the same time. So, it's great that we considered those, but, the residents need these services and want them when they have to be done.
Thank you. Any other comment from the committee? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. At this time, we'll open the floor for public comment on anything. And you, once again, state your name and address for the record.
Unmuted.
Once again, have 3 minutes.
Okay.
Public comment?
Yes, Stuart Brooks, Moores Meadow Road. At the May 26th meeting, I commented that on TRS's Facebook post regarding the Dunkin' Donuts fire. The post didn't mention the Tabernacle Fire Company and even implied that the TFC1 didn't respond. Instead, the post says only that the fire was controlled through mutual aid. I said, and I still say, that this comment shows a lack of cooperation by the TRS, that the TRS would play word games like this in public. To show up the fire company is amateurish and unprofessional, in my opinion. My questions are, does the TRS post meet township standards for professionalism and cooperation, the standards that the township adopted for its emergency service providers? 2, Mayor Brown, in May you said you hadn't seen the post. Have you taken the time to look at it yet? Has any member of the committee besides Mr. Moore looked at it? 3, who in the township has the responsibility to tell our emergency providers that their actions don't meet township standards? And I'm referring to this one, this example, the post by the TRS, or any other time it may occur. So I look forward to your answers to those. I'd also like to respond to Mr. Lang's comment that he was, quote, at a loss for understanding the concern about the notice to the budget. I can shed some light on that for you, although I'm sure my wife Fran can add more. Today she came up to the township building to look to see if that notice had been filed and if that affidavit of notice existed. And the deputy clerk who she spoke with was unable to give her the information, suggested she come back later when the clerk was here, which she did. She actually came back maybe a half hour, 45 minutes later, spoke with the clerk, and the clerk was unable to give her that information as well. So I can understand, Mr. Lang, why you're at a loss. Frankly, I'm at a loss why that information couldn't have been given over during the course of public business. It's a routine question. The last comment I have concerns a comment I made on the budget that I didn't hear an answer to. It had to do with whether or not Tabernacle is considering hiring a second tax assessor to handle Q Farm properties. And I didn't hear an answer to that. What I thought I heard was we might and we're budgeting for it. Obviously that idea didn't drop out of the sky. If it's been budgeted for, it would seem that there's a plan or at least a concept to do it. And that was what that question was asking, and no answer was forthcoming. So I'd appreciate an answer to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on anything?
Yes. Fran Brooks, Morris Meadow Road. You ready?
Go ahead.
Okay. We also didn't get an answer to the question from the CFO to the question about whether Mr. Sunbury is receiving both salaries, the one for committee participation and the other for OEM. It would be nice for Mr. Sunbury to please step forward and either say he's getting both or one or the other, but to make it clear what is being budgeted for, and if he is sustaining his position that he would only take one salary when he was running for office. As for the legal fees, let's drop this charade about Mr. Burns being brought on for OPMA and Oprah, because his work is really questionable. And I have lots of reasons I could rationale, but I'm not going to spend the time repeating Oprah's that I've submitted, and I'm the only one he's doing this for, so it's obviously directed to me, which is just fine. I mean, if you want to operate this way, you can you go ahead and spend taxpayer money and waste it. But the reason he was brought on is because, let's face the truth, Mr. Lang, when he was appointed the municipal court presiding judge, could not handle any lawsuits in Burlington County, actually. And so you were forced, unless you wanted to get rid of Mr. Lang and hire one attorney who could handle everything, you were obligated to hire another attorney who didn't have that conflict. And so you've couched it in terms of Oprah and OPMA, but it really doesn't seem to me that Mr. Burns is addressing so-called Oprah, all the Oprahs. You're just simply identifying my Oprahs, and he is repackaging them and sending me unnecessary letters that are costing the township residents a huge amount of money. And it's just absurd. I don't know why you people do it this way. You're not proving anything. And really, the real problem lies with the fact that Mr. Lang has a conflict. He can't handle Burlington County cases, and so you had to hire a second person. But let's stop with the charade about you hired someone exclusively for Oprah and Oprah, because my evaluation is that he never really handled any Oprah cases before he came on here. So he's getting a good education. The other comment I'd like to make is that I Oprah'd a copy of the township meetings for 3 meetings in MP3 file. The ones I've gotten are just impossible to understand. They're inaudible. You can't hear anybody on it. And you have an obligation to make your public meetings audible. And they obviously aren't audible. And the last one in particular is terrible. You can't hear Mr. Lang's discussion about the budget. So I would like to get a second copy. If you had properly purchased an audio equipment, which you spent, I don't know, $7-8 grand on a few years ago, with the most conventional record, we would be much better off. And
are there any other comments? Okay. Let's see. Do you want to talk about the assessor, Mr. Kramer?
I have not been approached by the assessor about bringing on anybody at this point in time.
Thank you. And to answer Mr. Brooks's question, no, I did not go on Facebook because I just don't go on Facebook hardly ever. And I've been way too busy working and doing other things to, go on Facebook to look at comments. Unfortunately, I just really don't have time for that. And as far as the squats post, I know nothing about it. I know Mr. Moore has seen it, but that's all I know. And Mr. Sunbury, it's up to you if you want to answer the question.
I choose not to discuss that at this time.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
That's public information.
All right, at this time, Mr. Guzzi, do you have anything else to add for the meeting tonight?
Just a couple quick updates. The 2020 road program are all asphalt. They've completed the drainage and paving work on Laurel and Pin Oak, and Fork and Deck Road has been completed. So they're down to punch list items, and we've given them a punch list, and we're just waiting for them to come in and clean up and finish up that project. Also, Oak Shade Road, Phase 1, which the township awarded. We have a pre-construction meeting scheduled for Thursday, August the 6th. So we're hoping to get that project started sometime later in August. And that's all I had this evening.
Thank you. Does anyone on the committee have any questions of Mr. Guzzi? All right, thank you. Mr. Sunbury, do you have anything for emergency management?
The only thing that I'd like to share is that we have had a repeater donated for Tabernacle's use, and it's also part of the 911 and mutual aid agreements. What happened is we were reached out to by Burlington County, Cooper Hospital, and the Southern Communities Emergency Radio Network. So they knew that it had been a disaster and communications failure of the primary systems. They donated a repeater here in Tabernacle, which is now online. The only thing we're working on getting is an antenna for it to improve the one that we presently have. But the entire repeater, UPS, all the different parts that go in have been donated to Tabernacle to be part of that Southern Counties Emergency Response Network. But not only does it provide a communications backup for the hospital systems throughout South Jersey, it also provides a repeater here that is for amateur radio use as well as for use in events that we provide certain coverage here in the township at just about really at no cost except for the antenna that we'll have on the south tower of the building.
Bob,
Thank you.
does that resolve a problem with Atlantic County Communications?
Atlantic County is part of that system. I don't know if you're referring to the new 700 megahertz trunk system that's being put in. I know counties working with our sister counties on that topic. Actually had an extensive discussion this afternoon regarding that. But they are working with our partners to make sure they can get on the system and that'll work seamlessly. We have the advantage, they're giving us all new radios for all of our emergency services as well as CERT, as well as the emergency services building. They're putting new antennas for that system on both of our towers. And the funny thing is, our link to the network is actually in the old cement pit, probably about 1,000 yards from the back of the emergency services building. So all those projects are moving forward. And I know county's working with our partners to make sure they can talk to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any other questions for Bob? Okay, Mr. Kramer, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, I would. First, I'd like to answer Mr. Barton's question about the radios. I've been in touch with the county, and they've sent me back a letter concerning that, the concern that was brought up by one of our neighboring communities concerning communications with Atlantic County. The present radio system still works the same way it always has, is there's a patch and that is readily available and is still being able to be used as we speak. The new radio system will make that a one less step process and continue to use that patch. They are working with improvements with Atlantic County, but Atlantic County's equipment is a little older than any of the other neighboring counties, and they're working on a system right now as we speak to try to make that more streamlined. And when Atlantic County upgrades what they need to do, they will be fully integrated the same way Camden, Mercer, and Ocean County are now. So that is being addressed directly by the county, the radio group that is putting this all together. And so the concerns that were expressed by our neighboring fire chief and also by ours are being addressed and really aren't an issue at this present time. How they've done it in the past, it will continue to be able to be done, and the new radios will just take one less step to get that accomplished. So I wanted to let you know that. The next thing we need to talk about is we have the next meeting. I'll be asking you to approve the sale of surplus equipment. We have a couple trucks, a backhoe, some older mowers, and an assortment of furniture to put on the web to sell either through the vendor we've used in the past, or the state now has a new approved vendor which we are doing our due diligence to do research on, see whether that's a better deal for the township. So one of those two will be presented to you next month for the sale of the equipment. We've also relooked at property that we have available for sale. I've gone through the list. There's about 5 or 6 sites that I think are at least appear to be buildable and could be put on the I believe on the open market. There's a few other sites that I'd like to work with Peter on doing what we can do for neighbors. It might be something that a neighbor is particularly interested in, or a few of the neighbors may be. and there's still the number of lots that we need to hold on either because they're wetlands or we're using them ourselves. So that's what I have. Also, I was asked to look into, we've been talking about the approved sale of the community center. That was appraised at $175,000 by an appraisal we had done, I believe it was last year, beginning of last year. There are some issues with that. There will be a required change of use when we sell it. So that will need Pineland's approval for whoever goes in there, and probably need stormwater approval to handle the stormwater for that building. We've been working with Dan's office to work on the drainage on Hawkins Road. The first step was to get Gates's Plaza to reconfigure their basins to what the design was. That's been accomplished and it helps a little. There are some more drainage we have to do uphill from that site to try to intercept some water. There seems to be an area behind the old firehouse that may be able to have a retention pond of some size that we can use that. And the community center could be used, but doesn't necessarily have to be used. It would, if we use it as an item that didn't need parking, we could use the majority of the parking lot as a buffer of some, but it isn't totally necessary at this point in time. If we are going to elect to continue with the sale, I would like to also state that we will probably need to have the ability to use the old firehouse to store some of the emergency equipment that we presently store in the community center. Whether that's shared with the fire company or whether the fire company turns that over to us or we take it back from the fire company to use that. That seems to be where it is. I do have a use for that building if we're not moving in the immediate future, which based on funding, it doesn't look like we're going to do expansion or moving of public works. It would be useful for storage for us if you choose to change your mind and keep that building. It does need a roof here shortly, and based on the cost of heating it, we would like to insulate the ceiling sufficiently better so to reduce that cost. But there are the options that are out there, and I'm not asking for a decision tonight, but it's some thought, and we can either have it at our discussion in our our September workshop, if you want to do it then. But that's what I have out there, and that's what I've gathered so far. So if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them as best I can. And if that sums up my report. Thank you.
I think you should put that on the agenda for the September 14th workshop meeting so we can have some in-depth discussion about it.
That would be fine with me. I could talk to LaShawn and we could make sure that's on there.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Lang?
Mayor, I have nothing to report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go down Township Committee. I'm going to start with Mr. Barton.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, first, if my memory serves me correct, this committee decided to hire Mr. Burns well in advance of Mr. Lang being solicited for a job at the county. So I just want to make that part of the record. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
I think
Also,
Mr. Lang can give you the date he was appointed.
Okay. Also, we had a 4th of July parade that was a very good success. Originally, we were looking at Southampton, Chemung, and Tabernacle. Southampton decided to opt out, but Tabernacle and Southampton did participate. We assembled at the at the Lakes Firehouse. And we had quite a procession of vehicles. I would say they're probably a good quarter-mile long between, our fire company, our EMS, our CERT team, our OEM coordinator participated. They actually were in the lead car with music with our chair of our recreation committee. We had the Warriors Watch Motorcycle Brigade came out in fourth with a bunch of Jeeps that ride with them. We had some antique vehicles, as well as all the Vincenttown Fire Company, Hampton Lakes and Hampton Lakes Emergency Squad. It was pretty humbling. We went through many streets in Leisure Town, and it was really humbling to see the number of the veterans with their hats on and their wives all dressed up in white and blue, saluting us as we went through. And while we couldn't get up and down every street, most of the streets that we were on and roads, we were met with families with their children dressed in red, white, and blue and with flags. So it was a nice event. So I thanked Chief Kennard and Chief Jackson and Bob Sudbury and Jack from our CERT team for putting it all together. Of course, Mark Lemire and everyone else involved. That's all I had to report there.
Thank you. Ms. McGinnis?
Hi, I have a few different things I want to bring up. One is the Murphy's Market sign was not approved by the DOT. So I want to know what we can do as a township to try to get that, to appeal the process and have the sign approved, as he's a highest taxpayer in our township. He pays $3,000 a year. So I wanted to help out, hopefully we could do it to help him, that sign up, and support him, as he supports our township. I wanted to know if we could do monthly workshop meetings, so we could get more done. Another thing I wanted to talk about. And then resident contacted me about having a bulk cardboard drop-off other than Monday through Friday, 7 to 3. He has to work and he can't make it, so he thought maybe once a month or twice a month on a Saturday morning would be great. Maybe one of the employees could come in late one day and then work on a Saturday or however, do overtime or whatever it takes, but to kind of accommodate the people that can't make it one of those times. And also, we should inform the residents that the trash must be put in trash bags. He had trash that was taken and it was all over the place from his neighbors and nobody picked it up, so the trash has to be in trash bags. And I wanted to know when we're going to have our township meetings back at the town hall. I think that would be really great for our residents to be able to go and see us in person. And then I also have a question about the township letterhead. I wanted to know if I can write a letter on township letterhead since I'm on the township committee, and I want to know, what Pete Lang has to say about that.
Pretty much yes.
What?
Yes,
Pete, Pete, can I put a letter out on the township letterhead since I'm on the township committee?
Aaron, do you want me to address that now?
Yeah.
Address that now?
Go ahead.
All right, well, I think that the Township Committee had previously resolved that the letterhead not be used for a particular purpose or the letter that was proposed. So there's a question of policy among the committee. The committee, I think, moved as a majority body to indicate that they did not want to get behind any specific collective letter on letterhead to support the position that was being espoused in the letter that Nancy, Committeewoman McGinnis is speaking about. So I think that, it's problematic if we don't get a majority of the committee to be behind a collective effort, a letter written on behalf of the committee, and then go ahead and do something individually. It can confuse the issue. At the same time, Committeewoman McGinnis is a duly elected committee person. She bears the office, she holds the office. And so while she would not be able to use the letterhead of the committee as a whole or the generic letterhead, I don't think that there's anything illegal about the use of a letterhead that may reflect her position in the office. I would indicate to Ms. McGinnis, and I'm sure she would be receptive to the idea that should she unilaterally decide to go against the wishes of the collective body and use the letterhead in her individual capacity, that she go out of her way to, in fact, make sure that any recipient of any such letter understands that she's speaking for herself as a committee person, as opposed to the body as a whole. And again, I would point out that I think it also would be preferable if the entire committee could agree on when and when not to write a letter, and thereby use the letterhead in those limited circumstances. So that would be my comment.
If I'm sending a letter out, first of all, I should have township letterhead. If I'm sending a letter out, explicitly says that it's just for myself and not for the other members of the committee, I shouldn't have to have their approval. And Pete, you're the one that told me to make the motion about the letter to begin with. You told me that I need to make the motion about the letterhead.
Well, what you just said is correct, Nancy. You can use the letter, and that's what I said, that you can use the letterhead as long as you used it in your individual capacity. I would think, though, that it would be preferred if the letterhead was used to write letters as the committee as a whole, as opposed to individual use of the letterhead. But certainly, as I said, as I clearly have indicated, that you are in the position. It is your office, and you can't be denied the mantle of that office. And so, any letterhead that would be used for you individually as an individual committee person does not run contrary to the bylaws as applied to the board, nor does it run contrary to the law. I just indicated that it would be preferable if everybody was on the same page. That's different from saying that it's impermissible, illegal, or violates any type of bylaw associated with the township, which it does not. So I'm consistent.
Okay, well, I would like that letterhead that visually sent to me, so that I have that in case I need to make the right letter. And also, Pete, you told me that I couldn't go around the horn and talk to each member of the township committee individually. And I called the New Jersey DCA, and they said that I can actually go and talk to each individual member separately, not together, not collectively, but talk about issues regarding the township. And I want to know if you can find out for sure and have it in black and white. Maybe you can find out for me if the fact that I can talk to township member officials can talk to each other one by one, and not, of course, more than that.
Nancy, are you referring to members of the committee?
Yes.
Yeah, I would strongly caution you against talking to individual members of the committee in full as a committee on any particular topic. The idea would be that that would be claimed to be violative of the Open Public Meetings Act, because in fact, in essence, what happens is if you go around the horn and you speak to each individual member of the committee about a particular issue and consensus build or discuss that, you are in fact, de facto inviting a committee, inviting public business to be conducted. You're just doing it, though, by going, like I say, around the horn. I said that there's nothing impermissible about speaking to an individual committee person at a chance encounter or otherwise as a subcommittee member, or to discuss a particular issue in a limited way between two committee members. But the minute that you start to consensus build, and as I like to say, go around the horn to get an idea of where people stand or develop people's ideas, that runs contrary to the Open Public Meetings Act. The Open Public Meetings Act contemplates an open debate and contemplates the public witness, bearing witness to that consensus building, that dialogue, that discussion. So I would I would strongly discourage the idea that you would go around and speak to each individual member of the committee about a particular issue, because I think that that would be, again, circumventing the act as opposed to meeting the intents and purposes of the act to allow that decision-making, that discussion to unfold in front of the public. However, I'd be happy to reinforce the decision or the opinions that I put out there before on the Open Public Meetings Act and the individual committee members' ability to talk among themselves concerning public business. And again, I think we have to operate under hypervigilance as it concerns the Open Public Meetings Act, and to go around the horn and speak to each individual member of the committee about a particular issue, I think would be violative of the act. However, that is not to say that the law stands for the idea that you can't talk to any individual member of the committee. So there's a line there that can't be crossed.
Pete, that's contrary to when I spoke with a person today from the Department of Community Affairs. That's exactly contrary to what they said. And how are we supposed to get anything done? I'm not saying that we're going to vote or make decisions about anything. Everything would be done in public. But, you know, for us to work together and things done.
Contact information, and I can call that person, and we can compare notes and see if something's getting lost in the translation, or whether there's a difference of opinion, or whether they can educate me in that regard. So
okay, I'll email you the question in writing, and then if you can get an answer for that in black and white, that would be really great.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that, Nancy.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Pete. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Our workshop meetings do start back up in September. So we do have a workshop scheduled for the 14th of September. So as far as the Murphy situation, the gentleman was supposed to send the information to me about an appeal process. Mr. Murphy does have that, I was told, but he was also supposed to send it to me. I have not received that yet. And as far as in-person meetings, I'm not really sure how and when, because of all the social distancing guidelines that are in place. So that's something that they would have to figure out, how many people could even be in the building. But, you know, everything we can look into that as far as that goes, but other stuff that you brought up, we can put on that workshop meeting so we can really roll our sleeves up and get into talking about things. All right, Mr. Sunbury?
Yeah, I'm a lot of ethics concerns in terms of the idea of having discussion outside of committee with extended personnel. I mean, I went to the trainings that was offered by the New Jersey League of Municipalities for new committee people, and they were quite clear that, you know, there is no consensus building outside of the township committee meetings. That's the place for discussion, for sharing of ideas. The workshop meetings are an ideal format for us to share things that we'd like to potentially get resolutions on or move forward on as a committee, and then we make decisions as to what should be brought before the committee. The other thing is we need to be cautious, you know, as to when to pull ourselves out of a discussion or abstain from voting. It's important that we not take and use our committee positions to, in a sense, push legislation and movements on behalf of our customers that, in a sense, could create a pay-to-play environment. That's a very concerning and risky behavior that we all need to be careful of. So, you know, the whole thing is we should be doing everything in the light of day, and that's why I try to avoid discussions with fellow personnel on the committee, you know, outside of things that are emergency management, because I think there's value in sharing and having our discussions in front of the public, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring up one thing that I had on my last health department meeting. There is coming in the near future a new saliva test that residents will be able to log into. I believe it's going to be a special portal that you can request a code, prove that you're a Burlington County resident. They will send you almost like a coupon code that you go to a specific website and you're able to get this COVID saliva test that can be performed in your home. You swab your own mouth, you put it back, they give you a postage paid envelope. It costs you absolutely nothing, and you should have your results within 48 to 72 hours. So that was the most important thing that I hear that has come out that's new, other than there's about 40 states that have numbers that are going through the roof. So at this time, I'm going to ask for a motion to go into executive session.
Can I say one more thing real quick?
Sure.
I'm not trying to do anything on the slide, okay? But if I'm like working on a new sign ordinance, and I go and I ask each member separately if they have anything they want to contribute, any ideas or anything, that's what I'm trying to do, get things done. I'm not trying to do anything behind anybody's back or behind the public's back. Nothing will be done. Everything will be brought out in the public at a meeting. That's what I'm just trying to get things done in this township, okay? I want to make that clear. I'm not trying to, be mischievous or...
Thank you. Can I have a motion to go into executive session for resolution CS 07-272-020, discussion pending, to discuss pending litigation matters, including Fran Brooks versus Township of Tabernacle et al., docket number BUR-L-02065, MER-L-0011192-20 and AM-000610-19 and contract negotiations matters, all falling within the attorney-client privilege. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barton? Mr. Barton?
Go ahead, Joe.
Mr. Barton?
Yes, I'm unmuted. Yes, I do have a comment after you get a second.
Ms. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Sunbury?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes. Did you want to make a comment now, Joe?
Yeah, Mayor, is there going to be any other business after the executive session, and is this meeting over, or do we have to sign back into this meeting?
I was actually just going to make all that announcement right now.
Okay, good.
There will, to the best of my knowledge, I do not anticipate any action being taken after the executive session. But we will have to come back into this meeting to adjourn it. We're just adjourning into a executive session, no different than what we would be doing at town hall. So I don't anticipate this being a long discussion. So we'll just be going into, we'll be exiting this meeting, going into the executive session meeting. This meeting will remain open for the people that are signed into it, and then we'll be just going to go right back into it like we did the first time around. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, so at this time, we're going to go into executive session. You have your motion, you have all your votes, and we're ready to go, right, Ms. Barber?
Yes, ma'am.
All righty, so everyone's just going to leave.